All right. So, welcome. This is the second of two readings for the Telling Room Young Writers and Leaders program. I am Kelly Blue. I'm the teen librarian at Portland Public Library, and I'm so thrilled to be partnering with the Telling Room to bring you this event. If you weren't with us Tuesday, we did record it. It was amazing, and we will be posting that shortly to the Portland Public Library YouTube channel, as well as this evening's reading. What do you need to know from me? I'm here to run things behind the scenes. Panelists, if you have any questions, just let me know. I will say that normally in a webinar, the chat is disabled. You will be able to use the chat. I just ask that you don't use it when someone is reading. So if you have wonderful, amazing things to say about the reader, just wait until they're finished with their piece. Thank you. So without further ado, I'm going to turn things over to Hapai and she'll get things started.
Thank you, Kelly. Welcome, online viewers. Thank you so much for tuning in to our spectacular reading today. My name is Hipai Pamba, or some of you may know me as Marlin. I am also an alum of the Telling Room, and this is my first year as a teaching artist, working alongside Sonia Tomlinson. There she is. The 15 students reading today are a part of the Telling Room's Young Writers and Leaders program. Thanks also to the Portland Public Library, the Teen Library, and Kelly Blue for collaborating with us and hosting this webinar to share our students' stories. The Telling Room is a nonprofit writing center for kids in grades 1 through 12. We build confidence, strengthen literacy skills, and provide real audiences for our students, like you. The Telling Room fosters a culture of respect, creativity, and community. It is my honor to introduce the students who are in the program this year. For the last 8 weeks, they have been working one-on-one with a writing coach to craft personal narratives about important events, people, and issues in their lives. These stories will soon be published in a Telling Room book. I want to congratulate the students for the hard work they put in this winter to write these stories, all done over Zoom with technical issues, time differences, and in a pandemic. Thank you also to their writing coaches for offering their time and support to young writers. The format for this afternoon will be as follows. Each student will be introduced by their writing coach, and then they will read an excerpt of their story or their whole piece. After you've heard from all the students, the chat will be turned into a Q&A, and anyone who is a speaker, please keep your camera on. Also mute yourself if it is not your turn. And the first coach introducing their student is Sophia. Enjoy these stories and thank you.
Hi everyone, thanks again so much for coming. So as Hipai said, my name is Sophia Scanlon, and today I have the great honor of introducing our first student, Avodia Olympia. A freshman at South Portland High School, Avodia embodies the phrase young writer and leader in every sense. She writes in her journal constantly about friends, family, school, and everything in between, and she's filled up several notebooks by now. Avodia's writing is thoughtful and engaging and well beyond what one would generally expect from a freshman in high school. Today, you'll hear an excerpt from her personal narrative, A Box of Candies. The story explores what it means to be a true friend, offers a touching tribute to a family member, and just really demonstrates the impressive writing ability that Avodia has. It's been a real joy working with and getting to know Avodia this semester. Her cheerfulness and kindness are infectious, and our sessions always became the highlight of my week. I'm excited to read all the stories that Avodia writes in the future, and I will make sure to say that I knew her way back when. So with that, here's Avodia. You won't see her, but you'll get a chance to hear her fantastic words.
A Box of Candies. A year and a half ago, Melsa helped me during a hard time. My brother had a sudden pain in his legs, so my parents had to take him to the hospital. It was just Melsa, my little sister, and me at home. We were all scared. We didn't know if he was going to be okay. Melsa was just as scared, but she made sure that my little sister and I were okay. She held our hands and we prayed together. We locked the doors, went to the room, and she told us positive things to get our mind off the tragedy that had happened that night. She sang our favorite songs, like Faith Can Make Things Happen. We ate ice cream, we watched our favorite shows, and before we went to bed, she told us everything was going to be all right. My parents spent the night at the hospital and she took care of us till the next day. This was one of the times she was a true friend to me. I needed a familiar face to tell me everything was going to be all right. Someone I trusted enough to actually believe that if they're saying I don't need to worry and that things are going to be okay, then I knew things would actually be okay. During that same week, I felt terribly bad. I was angry, upset, and sad. And I wanted to share all my feelings with someone, but I couldn't because I didn't feel close enough to my friends at school. I didn't feel like I trusted them enough to share such an important thing with them. I didn't feel like they would tell me what I needed to hear to make me feel better because they didn't know what that was like. They didn't know what I was going through, so I thought there was no way for them to be able to help me. At school, it was a bit hard for me to talk about how I was feeling because I didn't want to share what had happened. I was sad, so I didn't want to talk to anyone. But my friend Bella came up to me and she was worried. She kept asking me what was wrong, and it just came out. I told her about my brother's situation, and at first, I thought she wouldn't understand, but I was wrong. She didn't say stuff like, I know how you feel, or I understand what you're going through, because she didn't. Instead, she tried her best to keep my mind off of it. We went out after school, we talked about other stuff, we laughed, and we played in the snow. And the next day I went to school. She left in my locker a box of candies and a little note that said, everything's going to be okay. Now that I think about it, Bella is a true friend. I thought that she wouldn't understand me, but she did. She didn't know what it was like to have a brother in the hospital, but she did know what it was like when someone you love is hurt. I was looking for a friend like my sister, and I found someone similar to her. I always thought that a true friend would have to be someone you've known for a long time, someone you share deep secrets with, or that's been in your life forever. I always thought that my sister was forever going to be my only true friend, but I realized that a true friend can come at any time from anywhere.
Thank you, Avodia. That was lovely. Hi, I'm Anya Hansen, soon to be famous as the second coach to Miguel Felipe. Writing about a memory that brought you shame and isolation when you were a child is very hard. Switching writing coaches on Zoom in the middle of a pandemic is also hard. Writing compelling prose that culminates in poetry is extremely hard. You know what's easy? Coaching Miguel Felipe. Not only did Miguel attempt all these difficult things, but he also achieved them with poise, ambition, and insight. With his wonderful first coach, Matt Delameter, now off shooting a film, Miguel sketched a plan to write about a childhood memory, bind it to more recent experiences, including his emotions during the COVID lockdown, and then to build to a poem that synthesized all of it. I confess, I didn't know how he could do it all in the few remaining sessions, but each week, Miguel led with a smile and courteous questions about my well-being. Then he tucked into writing. Each session, he produced more work. And then he added extra sessions because he had more to say. Need reassurance that hard things can spur growth and possibility? Just listen to Miguel.
The morning after his discovery, I was called into the headmaster's office and questioned for my bewildering attitude. I was filled with shame and couldn't look him in the eyes. My heart started racing faster than sport cars. My guts were producing fake feelings of using the toilet. I hope you all know these feelings, but if you don't, I'd suggest you stay that way. I could sense that something bad was coming, a beating, scolding, or suspension probably. But then I heard him say, Miguel, because of your egregious behavior, you're unfit to continue in this school and hereby expelled from our primary school. I watched as everyone would go to school and felt dumb. I watched as my friend debate and felt dumb. Things escalated when we moved to a new house and was again further away from where I used to stay and further away from school. I'd have to make new friends, which was impossible because everyone in my group age would only make friends in school at this time. I was emotionally drained. Constant suicidal thoughts would haunt me, but I loved the idea of being alive more than that of being buried without any friends or ex-classmates showing up at my funeral. The loneliness that I once feared and hated was now my best friend at this point, primarily because I had nowhere to go, no friends to talk to, and to make things worse, I was single, wanting to mingle. Instead of beating myself up and complaining, I decided to invest my time into worthwhile activities like working out, reading, and listening to podcasts. During this period, my ability to listen and understand people increased drastically. It increased so much that I would fully understand French conversations, going at the time while still being an intermediate speaker. I started to see sense and meaning in all these small things that I've never paid attention to before. During this time, I realized the importance of quarantine. Instead of being something dull and depressive, I turned it into a phase of self-improvement. I realized that never in my life was I given so much time to try and find myself, to dive into my deepest fears and trying to reason with them, to fail until I became successful. I achieved this mindset by analyzing and being alone, and by analyzing the pros and cons that COVID brought into my life. Not saying that coronavirus is something good, simply stating that I was already in the rain and it's only normal I get wet. But I had the option to either build myself an umbrella or remain in the rain like everyone else. What I learned from this experience was bracing, because I came to the realization that though we are social beings, we need to cope with the idea that we came to Earth alone. Although it might seem scary, it's through moments we spend alone that we think of what we need instead of what we want. I found silence in the loud room. Many say that silence intimidates, that it's the best solution to many problems, the best remedy for certain issues. I find silence fascinating because it's my main source of reflection, creativity, and meditation. Be aware, silence does not mean to isolate yourself from society. That would only cause you to feel lonely. And loneliness is opposite to what humans are, which is social beings. We are meant to socialize for existence, but also to be silent in order to analyze. I understand why some people fear silence. It's likely that they are afraid of their thoughts. Sometimes that fear can make us miss on a lot of opportunities and most likely lead us to live a miserable life. That's why I never fear a moment of silence.
My name is Fela Cortez. That's really hard to follow. Miguel, that was beautiful. My name is Fela Cortez, and I have the incredible fortune and luck of working with Alia Usanese. One thing that I experienced a lot in the past few months were these chills that I sometimes get when you truly experience something wonderful. Like you feel it in your stomach, you feel it in your aura. And every writing session with Alia, I'd have a chill. She'd read me things or she'd tell me stories, and I would just have these chills. She has this uncommon gift of being able to see the world from this like bird's eye macro view and then like going down to these little details. Some people might equate that with like age, but I just think it's something special about her. Her storytelling just kind of drops you right into what she's describing. It's kind of like that little yellow guy on the Google Maps where she just drops you right in. She's this young woman who is a lady, really, who is filled with wit. She's very funny, quiet. She is graceful. She is extremely humble. She loves her family and she loves her religion and finds peace in it. Very good music, lots of things that I can that I can understand. Alia is a junior at Deering High School in Portland, and I'm so excited that she's going to read you part of her piece, her personal narrative, which is called Precious Sacrifice, about her time and a big challenge that she faced as a young child going to school in a different country. Alia, thank you.
Hello, everyone. So I'm Alia Usanase, and I'm going to read to you an excerpt from my story, Precious Sacrifices. As soon as I started believing that I'd fallen into my little heaven on earth that I'd always wished for, I found out that it was hell for them. The little things that I thought were gold, they'd seen as bare soil. For my parents, especially for my dad, a good education is priority. Uganda was way more advanced in education than Rwanda. That's why my dad sent me and my siblings there. I used to think that my dad must have hated us to send us there, but I didn't think so of my mom, because she was as sad as I was whenever she had to leave us. While my mom complained about being far from my kids and not taking care of us, my dad didn't give up. He was looking at something else. He focused more on what we gained than what we lost. He knew it wasn't easy since day one, but he also knew that the sacrifice was worth it. Indeed, it was. I studied when I least wanted it, had the education my dad wanted me to have, but most of all, I grew and learned. The sadness I had from not being in my comfort zone at home with my mom removed the arrogance and made my heart humble and even stronger. If I had been the kid I wished to be then, I wouldn't be as intelligent and as strong as I am today. All in all, I'm grateful for the hell that I went through. Someday when I have kids, I'll teach them that nothing comes easy and that anything precious in life is worth sacrifice. I won't make things tough for them, but it won't always go smooth either. As for my new school, I thought that was heaven. Now I know that nothing remains as it is when you first see it. Things will always change at some point. Now I know for sure that heaven is in heaven and it can never be on earth.
All right, and up next we have Maya and Didon.
Hi, everyone. My name is Maya. I use AM, they, them, and she, her pronouns, and Didon uses she, her pronouns, and she is a radical young woman I have had the honor and privilege to work with in my first round as a mentor in the Telling Room's Young Writers and Leaders program. Having the opportunity to see her grow in her storytelling and her poetic voice has been a joy. Didon has a dream to be a surgeon and an activist for women and girls. What has stood out to me each time Didon talks about her dream is her desire for everyone to achieve the dreams they want to accomplish. Please welcome Didon in her reading of her history of dreaming, Level Up.
Level up. Where is the location at? What is their sound? The memories under the sun. The only memory I have is fading silently and unseen. The smell of his perfume was like powder on my nose. She is my blood, so I ask myself, what's her dream? A mystery closed off my ears. The little girl inside me wants a hug, but the reality pushes her away from me. The reality is speechless and invisible. The little girl is avoided as my teardrops on my feet. Nobody knew the little girl existed, so the little girl was ignored, and her silent sadness grew slowly. My childhood is avoided until it be forgotten. A single memory with no feelings. My ears asked to hear his voice one more time. As much time he had, as much time he wasted. Still I waited, but rejection closed me out. We always wanted to tell him that we're bigger than he thinks we are, whose arm will give hugs and pass on history. I always carried the little girl inside me. Will we say goodbye? What kept us women stuck in the dark for so long? Drop tears will be erased. Women's painful scar will release blood. The blood will speak to the ground, and the ground will cry to justice. Asking for help isn't giving up, it's refusing to give up, Grandmother Lois said. You can have as many dreams as you want, Hayes said. The greatest secret is nobody knows how great you can be, Charlie Ecotta said. I'll rise with a smile on my face, not a singer or a dancer, a special drummer. My eyes need to see the talent and the beauty they carry. My wings will grow until they fly. My talent will roar like a lion. When will tears stop dropping? The ground asked Justice. Justice answered, a secret will be told. When it does, clean your ears and open your eyes. So I'll hold tight and stand still. Am I ready? The future can be unpredictable. Before then, I'll accept my fate. Before then, I'll hack my depression. Before then, the rejection will finally drop tears. Before then, mothers won't shed tears. Before then, me and the little girl inside will finally say goodbye, so I can finally dream.
We are going to transition over to Moon and Aksumuit. Thanks, Moon.
My name is Moon, and I work as an advocate, and I'm a poet, and I have worked with Sonia before as a teacher, and I am here to introduce an incredible young person named Aksumuit Gabra Mikel. And Aksumuit, just her name, Aksum comes from an ancient world in Ethiopia. Me being half Ethiopian and really, really trying to pay homage to where I come from, she and her soft voice became the powerful reminder of not only where I came from, but what I forgot and what she was able to kind of rejuvenate within me. Aksumuit, it's funny because she would try to introduce herself as being shy, and and that soft-spoken voice of hers will fool you in that way. But the stories that live inside of her are so much larger and carry such a deeper baritone and some sort of ripple than she even understands. And so I'm very excited for her to be able to share her words. Working with her has been absolutely incredible, not only because she comes from my mother's land, but because she thought that I was teaching her, but actually I was waiting for the things that she would say and the memories that live inside her head, because I moved here at 5 years old, and she holds such a piece of a lost part of me that I had forgotten about. I have not been able to connect with in this way. And to see a young person be able to tell these stories and that she thinks are so general and so subtle, but have such an incredible power to connect me to a different part and connect everyone to a different part has been amazing. And so I am so excited for you to hear her piece that teaches you that immigration does not only happen in birds, but it also happens in airplanes.
Airplane. Idea. Day after day, I yell at the sky as a big bird flies by. Looking back now, I knew why he had to leave. It was for us. It was for me. But in those days, all I felt was the loneliness and abandonment. Idea. The big bird passed me by today. I tried to scream louder. I tried to jump higher, but it ignored me again. It had no idea that each time it flew by, it took with it the hope of that day. Idea. I won't lose hope. I'll yell for you until you come home. I'll hold on with everything that I have, with a promise that one day I'll get you back. Idea. When I received the news that we'll be reunited, I was scared and I was excited. I no longer have to yell at the big bird that flies by. Idea. When one day the big bird stopped and lifted me to the sky to be by your side. Thank you.
We're switching up the order. Gosh, I'm sorry. I was that was phenomenal. Oh my goodness. Really quickly, I realize I keep interjecting. I'm Sonia. Hi, I haven't had the chance to introduce myself. Hipai did. For those of you following along in the chat, we are going to switch up the order ever so slightly because one of our students is tuning in from Kurdistan. So we'll go ahead and I'm going to hand it over to Valeria.
Thank you so much, Sonia. And I must say that this experience is so uplifting. I'm just so grateful to be part of this, and also just part of working with this very special writer. I feel like the stars have aligned in this meeting, and I will explain. Many of you may be familiar with the video, this telling room video, the interview between President Barack Obama and telling room writers. And so I sent that video off to all of my friends and I said, I'm so pleased to be one of the coaches for this program. Can you guess which writer is the one I'm working with? Every single one said Rania. It's Rania. It's definitely Rania. And that is because I had lived in Rania's homeland for a number of years previously. And so when I was approached by Sonia to consider participating, I had a feeling that there's something special in the works. And of course, Rania and I, who definitely have crossed paths in the Kurdistan region over the years somehow, but it takes a full circle till we meet in Maine. And that is super special because in getting to know each other through this process, we, well, in some ways, we speak the same language. Mine's a bit rusty, but knowing the food or the land and the experiences and even the roads as we spoke, it's very familiar. And you will also have that same experience as well when you hear her story, as she can weave a very real experience for you. Even if it's something that's somewhat familiar, she can walk you there. And I had that feeling with working with her on pandemic identity. Obviously, the pandemic, something that's very familiar with us. And with her words, she can weave a new labyrinth for you, a new way of looking, complete with the fear, the introspection, the questions, and a little element of suspense and another world that's imagined. And so I'm very pleased to introduce to you Miss Rania Adnan. Rania Jan Piroz Bey, I'm so proud of you.
Hello everyone, my name is Rania, and I'm gonna begin now. It has been precisely 412 days since I've been locked out. At that moment, there was a certain pause in my life, as if time had stopped and nothing was left but masks and bones. It began in late 2019, but soon after it spread like lava. Jobs were lost, lives taken, loved ones found slaughtered by it in 3 months. It only befalls every 100 years, and when it does, it slithers its way around us like a reptile, scanning for its subsequent meal. I was benign at the time. I hadn't grasped the venom that would go into my skin. However, the bite hurt. It left me bruised and cracked. Soon enough, we had become the meal, becoming spiced and set to be eaten. Our immune systems became frail as we battled for the last drop of vitamin C, deeming it would desist it all, but it never did. 2 months had passed, with school shut down, education was lost and never regained. We only thought it would be 2 weeks. Boy, we were in for a feast, for that fortnight transformed into eternity. It remained comfortable for a few months being able to be in quarantine, but ultimately each moment drove us insane. We took pills to subsequently end the spread in our minds, but we had grown addicted, haunted with the idea that someday we will make it out, and our pill was hope. Countless lost themselves in this matter, growing more and more conscious of their surroundings. frightened to insert their foot down on the concrete, figuring out that life is more than just merely an asteroid and stars. But we promptly figured out who we were. Well, that was the case for me. Let me inaugurate by introducing myself. My surname is Anya Hansen. My astrological symbol is Gemini, and I'm 14 years old and currently a high school freshman. I never contemplated a pandemic. The thought of it gave me chills. I am a dystopian enthusiastic, and numerous times I envy the Hunger Games, but not to the point in which I would exist in it. While growing up, not much came towards me, mainly sand and the melting warmth on my face. I became fond of my life, obligated that I hadn't been fighting in a war like my relatives or being destroyed by the thought of drugs. It sprang out transcendent, like most tales do, but this wasn't a tale, but reality, and this reality was going to have a particularly curvy road ahead that not even bulldozing would fix. A mysterious virus had developed from Wuhan, China. I didn't deem much of it. I was naive at the time. I didn't believe that one could change my life. But again, this was a year ago, and it appears to still be alive. I was ready to dig its grave, but it wouldn't let me. The strength of it was nothing I had seen before.
Thank you, Rania. It's so nice to see your face. I think, Valeria, it's like an 8-hour time difference. So thank you, Rania, for doing this at like close to midnight. You are so appreciated. Thank you. We miss you. And our next coach was unable to be here. They are in a senior level college class and in the middle of an exam, but they are a YWL alum. Edna Tekla Akimana is a coach for Diora, who you'll meet momentarily, but I'm going to share my screen for a moment. And Diora, you will get to see Edna's intro for you.
The day I was told that my mentee was from my beautiful country, Burundi, I was so thrilled to meet her. I never expected to connect with her on so many aspects of life. Both of us immigrated at age of 19, unaccompanied, attended during high school, and became young writers and leaders during our first year after moving to the United States. Although our childhood stories are not similar, our experiences as young adult immigrants living alone are the same. When I see her, I see myself. She might be a little shy, but she has a fervent desire to change our society, our world. The past 2 months, I learned that she loves science like I do, and that is a love she was gifted since she was a child. She loves her family, her culture, and her young writer and leader's family. She's trying to figure out how to survive in this world as a young adult immigrant girl. In her story, you will learn that she is the epitome of courage. She doesn't only wear her crown as a proud Burundian girl, but as a young feminist who voiced her thoughts and advocate for other youth. As she finishes her studies as a senior, her goal is to continue pursue her education and go to a good college. I'm honored and humbled that our path crossed this way, and I wouldn't change a bit. With no further ado, please allow me to introduce to you the very brave and smart young writer and leader, Diora Nagano. Thank you.
Yeah. To the daughter of my land. I was born in Burundi, the heart of Africa. It is warm with a sun that doesn't seem to rest. I used to play soccer with my friends on the street of that country until I was 14. Sons and daughter were the same to me. I felt like we were raised to achieve a better and happy future. I had 2 sisters, so to me the difference in the education given to the boys and girls was a mystery. Until that night when we had neighbors over who asked me if I knew how to cook, which innocently I responded no. I remember the surprised look on their face when they asked my mother why a girl my age couldn't cook. They continued and said that I wasn't a boy, that I should know how to.
To me, it sounded like a girl was just made for the kitchen, and my pride was hurt. My mother saw it and knew what I was thinking. She turned to them and said, "Great cuisine has no gender. You should teach your sons too, and let my daughter do her math." It was heartwarming to know whatever they could say, my ally is a strong woman that happens to be my mother. She knew my love for science, as I always wanted to be an engineer. I don't remember my mother in the kitchen. We all knew that she could cook since my grandmother wouldn't have let any of her daughters marry without knowing how to. My father never expected her to cook, which was so different from his colleagues, who would always brag about how they could never eat food if their wives didn't cook it. It was such a ridiculous reason to brag, I always thought to myself. I wanted to be praised for more than just adding spice to rice, so I started saying that I would work hard and be rich, which my grandmother disapproved of since she was a woman raised to serve. She said that I would be threatening my husband's pride if I was to bring more money than him. Even if my parents had always gone against what my community said, they were raised by them. Therefore, they had their agreement with, which was that a girl are fragile, like some porcelain dolls. I had eyes on me on every move I made. "You are not a boy. You can't walk around as you want," my mother said to me after I asked if I could go out with my friends. It was the first time I heard my mother blame me for being a girl, which I didn't understand at that time. Now that I reflect on it, girls are supposed to be home and rarely seen out. That was a sign you were a woman of virtue. Be rare like a diamond, my mother always said to me. It must have been hard for my mother to receive criticism on my education every time. It was a known thing in my culture that rebellious child belongs to the mother, while a mother child belongs to the father. Thank you.
Thank you, Diora. That was wonderful. I'm Nancy Buttman, and for the last few years, I've been a coach in the YWL program, and every year I am just amazed by the stories these students write and the amazing experiences they've had. This year, I had the great pleasure of working with Josie Melsa Olympio. Josie is a junior at South Portland High School. She moved here with her family 4 years ago without a word of English. In our first conversation, she described herself as an ambivert, demonstrating a fluency in English that stumped me. "What," I asked, "is an ambivert?" She explained, "It's a person who is both an extrovert and an introvert." What a great word. How did I not know it? Just one of the many things I learned from Josie. As I got to know her over the winter, I realized just how well that word does describe her. Quick to laugh or tell funny stories about herself and her friends, she is equally thoughtful and introspective. She is a careful writer, anxious to find just the right way to express her thoughts and ideas. The poem she has written explores the idea of leaving one life behind and moving into a new one. It has been a joy to work with Josie. Please welcome her as she reads an edited version of her poem, This Is Me.
This is me. I remember our apartment was on the 5th floor. Some small building, no elevator, and I had friends on every floor. A week before we left, I registered for my new school. My 1-year older friend who lived across the hall from me was going there too. I was excited to be in the same school as her. But one day, my father told us he had exciting news. "We're going to travel." My siblings and I couldn't contain our excitement. "Where are we going? Where are we going?" The four of us jumped and asked. He didn't say anything except we had to pack and get ready. On a Friday night of the same week, my mother woke me up in the middle of the night. She told me that the flight was for that night and we had to leave then. My friend was coming from the store. "Hey, Boo, where are you going in the middle of the night?" She didn't let me answer. "You're looking hot," she continued. "I'm hot because of the weather." I flicked my long imaginary hair. I'm going nowhere, but I promise I'll be back." We chuckled. I hugged her. I would have hugged her tighter if I knew that was the last time I would see her. She was the only person I got to say goodbye to. From the first, everything was new. From the weather to the people with light skin, 12-year-old me thought it was exciting. It was January when we landed in America. I mostly stayed home. It was snowing, and I went out only once. I was told we were going to stay here for about a week or so. A few days later, I asked my father why we weren't packing. He told me we weren't going back. My heart tightened at his next word. I wasn't aware of the tears that began to fall. I'm sorry, honey, but it's for the safety of us all. Forget the past and let it go. 2 weeks later, I had to go to school, Portland Middle School. It was terrifying. I knew zero English, and I was the only one in my family in middle school. I had an interpreter who spoke Portuguese. We became friends. However, I was constantly confused, didn't know what to do or where to go. Students moved from one room to another, but I was used to only teachers moving. The school was big like an ocean, too much water. I felt like a newborn fish in the middle of it. I was alone and I didn't want to feel alone. I didn't know anything about this new world. It was like going on a field trip without the necessary things. You're not ready. I don't want to stop speaking Portuguese. I want to keep my memories. I want to keep my friends and family. I want to remember their faces and names. I don't want to get rid of me, the parts of me that make me, me. I had to live my old life without preparation, had to live irreplaceable things. Here I am now, writing my own story. I'm thrilled to meet you. Please talk to me. I don't want to know you from your mom, from your sister, from your dad, or your brother. Don't want to know who you were or who you're going to be. I simply wish to know who are you. I ask myself standing in front of the mirror.
That was wonderful. My name is Tessa O'Brien, and I'm a first-time YWL coach. I showed up on the first day unsure of what to expect, and for some reason I was mentally prepared to coax a shy young adult out of their shell. And Hadil Ramadan popped onto my Zoom screen and shattered that image in a tumble of laughter and stories and animated movements. Within minutes of meeting, I learned that she had a scrappy little dog that she loves. She lived in North Sudan and Egypt before moving to the US. She's a multi-talented artist, and she has a funny story to tell. That would not be a difficult task. Hadil is genuinely hilarious, in addition to being brilliant, resilient, thoughtful, and on the go. I never had to coax a word out of her. The stories flowed like a rapid river. Her vibrant personality came through in each story that she wrote, giving the readers a glimpse of how this young woman moves through the world. I'm deeply honored to have gotten to spend this time getting to know Hadil, and I'm very excited to introduce Hadil and her story to you today. Take it away.
Thank you, Tessa. Lost in Egypt. My parents had to file an immigration form to stay in Egypt. Every weekend, we would go to a place called in Cairo, 6th October City. On the weekend, the buses are crowded with people trying to force themselves in. The only cars used to drive people around are vans with 8 passenger seats. A single van can fit almost 14 people. You would experience families having their kids on their lap. Whenever we go to 6th October City with my entire family, we ended up bundling ourselves to fit in the van. One time, I was walking with my parents and I went ahead, even though I wasn't supposed to do. They got in the van and took off without me. I lost my parents due to the tall trees that blocked my way from seeing them. I looked across the street. I see the van riding around to exit the street. I said to myself, there's no way I can catch up to that van. This is a goodbye moment. I stood there looking at the van, driving around in a circle. The next thing I knew, I was running after it and crying. The van turned and vanished and reappeared after 1 second. The van came to where I was standing, picked me up. I began talking in my mind, thanks God, I don't have to walk myself home alone. My parents looked at me angry. They said, this is what you learn, the lesson not to walk ahead. I sat between my mom and dad, crying until I fell asleep. I said to myself, I would never walk again ahead, but I did again. After a 2-hour drive, we got off the van. We walked through the neighborhood to get to get home. I thought I knew the way. I asked my brother Haytham to walk ahead with me. We ended up on a weird street, one that we didn't know. We both walked back to look for my parents. We never found them. Me and Haytham ran all over the street, asking random people where our town was. I found my parents. They were in front of us, and then I realized I knew where we were. I knew the neighborhood. The neighborhood was where my school was located. My brother and I had been scared, but we acted like we were just catching up. I told my parents we had been behind them the whole entire time. This experience is a regret that I had always been in my mind until today.
Good evening, everyone. My name is James Kim, and it is my distinct honor to be introducing Lionel and his incredible poetry today. Lionel is a passionate poet who constantly pushes the boundary of poetry by taking risks with words on his page. A sophomore at Casco Bay High School, Lionel loves to experiment with rhythm and rhyme in his poetic writing. And as a writer myself, I was grateful to witness his work come to life word by word, line by line each week. His relationship with words is playful, intentional, and personal. Throughout our sessions, we delve deeper into exploring the intersections and differences between rap lyrics and poetry. Today, Lionel will be sharing his reflective piece recounting his personal experience during the hardships of 2020. His work is reflective, real, resiliently flowing, and inspirational. It has been a true privilege to work with Lionel for these past few weeks, and without further ado, I'm honored to introduce Lionel.
My name is Lionel Celestino, and I'm 15 and a sophomore at Casco Bay High School. My poem is based on events that occurred in the year of 2020, and it's basically a poem that summarizes the year. A few interesting things about me or myself are that I'm very outgoing. I love playing basketball and hanging out with my friends. I also enjoy rap and also enjoy learning new things. The name of my poem is called 2020 Shenanigans. All of a sudden, there's a wildfire. Now Kobe's dead. Man, that's crazy. We all wish Trump was taken instead. Then, some corona, which is a virus, took over like an invasion. This can't be real. It's probably all in my imagination. Suddenly, I only experienced half of my freshman year. Through a pandemic that brought a lot of fear. The whole world was shook because of all the sudden lives it took. It was like an apocalypse was occurring. Hurry, get to stacking. There's no time for rehearsing. Mental health was at its lowest. Everyone was feeling blue. Everyone had enough. We all felt like saying, Corona, screw you. With so much isolation, we felt disconnected. These don't look like better days that they had manifested. I was living in my thoughts, steady overthinking. On a losing streak, forgot the feeling of winning. The start of online school was a tragedy, but it kind of felt like school in the future, actually. Motivation became rare. I really could have dropped out of school if it weren't for my parents, I swear. Time was going by so fast, I began watching my childhood disappear. I became more mature and my vision became so clear. Then once again, we were reminded that Black lives didn't matter. The enemy really said, whatever, we'll kill you, and you whenever. Riots after riots, protests after protests in demand for change. Don't you see we just want justice? We don't want things remaining the same. When is this all going to end? And why is this mask still on my face?
Thank you, Lionel. That was very, very good. Great poem. And hello, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for being here. My name's Sam Cohen, and I have the honor of introducing Andy and his wonderful story. And before I get into how extraordinary Andy is, I just wanted to acknowledge first the accomplishments of all the students here who've given us their time and creative energy. And I think that we all at this point know how there's a special kind of exhaustion born from the unnatural rhythms of this sort of Zoom meeting. And so to show up every week as all the students have done, as all the mentors have done, to be vulnerable, to have a willingness to write, to turn your cameras on. It's an awesome accomplishment. And I just want to thank everyone for that. And I really want to thank the Telling Room for creating a safe digital space in which to do that. And I look forward to doing it on Commercial Street soon. So to Andy, he's a student at Casco Bay High School. He is passionate about criminal justice reform, about basketball, about anime, just to name a few of his interests. And early in our time getting to know each other, he said to me, "I hate writing," which I think is something that all true writers can like deeply connect with, that feeling. So in our brief but like very memorable time working together, I witnessed Andy's fearlessness, and I really appreciated his willingness to share openly, and I learned a lot. He's a very deep and profound thinker, and to put it very simply, I had a lot of fun. I enjoyed every conversation, and I was jealous of every bowl of Chipotle that he ate in front of me. So I like to keep track of memorable quotes that I hear in my life, and I write them down, and I wrote down a lot that Andy said, and they're more than I can really share in this 90-second window. But some of them that I can share, when he just very randomly said, "You know, sometimes I think about world debt." Or when I asked him, like, how was it preparing to meet President Obama? And he just said, "I was born ready." Like, no pause, just said it immediately. Another one that really stood out to me was when he said, "Time is something that you create for things you want to do." And it was something that really made me pause and consider. And Andy, it was always a pleasure. It was always easy and enlightening to spend time with you, working with you. So wonderful job. To the audience, enjoy. To Andy, until next time, and to be continued. Thank you.
Heart and soul of an immigrant. I remember that morning, waking up, and everything was packed and ready to go. Everything happened so fast. I remember being excited to go. It was an exciting day and a sad day that I will never forget. I remember saying goodbye to everyone and not knowing if I would ever get to see them again. My friends, my family that I was close to, especially my grandmother. But I know she's in a better place now. Getting to the airport and going through so many checkpoints and making it to the gateway into another dimension, a new world I have never been to or seen. Walking through a hallway into a plane, sitting window side and waiting for takeoff. Wondering how this big piece of metal was getting off the ground. Being in that piece of metal gave me a different view of the world. As a kid, you always look up in the sky wondering what is up there. Looking down from that plane gave me a view of appreciating what is down there. On that plane, seeing weird foods, seeing movies that I couldn't understand, cracking jokes with my brothers and laughing as time went by, and trying to understand flight attendants. I remember seeing a bunch of colors and different shapes and sizes of the world underneath me. Seeing big green fields and roads that never ended. Seeing big cities that looked so small. Seeing blue. And this big dark blue pool that I wished I could swim in. It was a giant body of water that was everywhere I looked. Never ending, overflowing, or draining. Next thing I knew was that I woke up again, except this time my brother is telling me to get up and that we were landing, thinking we had finally arrived, but we didn't. We were in a different airport, walking around, finally sitting down again. For hours waiting for another plane, falling asleep again in my mom's lap, tired and a little bit hungry. Looking back at it now, it was an amazing experience that I wish I could relive and go through again. On the second piece of metal, I had a window seat with no window. just a wall next to the bathroom. It smelled funky, and I wanted to move. I remember seeing two female flight attendants. One was black, the other was white. One was talking to me and my brothers. She asked us if we spoke English. We just nodded our heads and said no. She kept trying to talk to us, but we didn't know what she was saying. I remember she asked us if we wanted napkins as we were eating. I looked up at her confused because I didn't know what she was saying, so I said no. My brothers said yes. She left and came back and gave them to my brothers. I was a little bit mad and jealous that I didn't get one. My brother gave me one because he didn't need it. Looking back at it now, I laugh at myself for being stupid. Living here in the USA is not what I expected it to be. It wasn't anything near to what the movies were showing. I thought America was this dream world where dreams come true. What a lie that was. The people here had no idea what it was like living somewhere else outside of the US, so they made assumptions. I had never felt like an outsider living here. The culture was way different. The language was way different. The food looked weird and tasted weird. I was made fun of for being an outsider. It was such an unwelcoming way to be here. As an immigrant, it is hard to settle in. The language barrier was so strong, it was like trying to break a wall that would not collapse. Learning is the biggest challenge and process that will never end. To this day, I'm still learning. If it is one thing I've realized is that America is really good at advertising itself. The greatest country in the world, but it's not. It has problems just like any other country. Don't get me wrong, living here has given me many opportunities and chances to live a fun, meaningful life. America is a great country, but it has flaws that people refuse to see. Until we see those flaws, we will never truly change. I will forever be an immigrant adjusting to this country. To be continued.
Andy, thank you. That was beautiful. My name is Sarah Corbett, and this is my fourth time being a writing coach with young writers and leaders. And every time it's special. But like with so much else in the world, this year has been more strange, but also more special for all of that strangeness. And I just want to say really thank you all so much. I can't tell you how much I look forward to every Thursday, how much to quote the great Andy, built my time around the space that we all created here. So thank you for giving me so much to look forward to every week. I looked forward to, above all, the face of Leticia Hanna coming on my computer screen every week. Leticia is a bright spirit who, though we've never been in the same room together, just transcends all boundaries. She came to Young Writers and Leaders a fully baked writer. The first thing I learned about her is that in the year leading up to joining the program, she had written a 150-page memoir of her family's journey to the United States from the Democratic Republic of Congo. I've had the privilege of reading it, and I'm in awe of what she has done with the help of another mentor. She's lucky to have Wendy Toole at Deering High School. Together, they've created something that is really beautiful, and to me was really intimidating because I thought, well, how can I help this brilliant writer who's already on the rise? And the amazing thing about Leticia is she'd already done this work, but she wanted to start on something fresh. And the very first day we met, I asked her to tell me a story about what she had cooked recently. And she told a perfectly formed story, which everybody who's ever written knows is really hard to come by, but not for Leticia. She is gifted. She is hardworking. She revises consistently and elevates every single time she does. She speaks 6 languages, maybe 7. I can't remember exactly, but you can feel her her deftness with language in everything she does.
It's been an incredible honor to work with Leticia, and I'm really excited for her to share with you an excerpt of the story she wrote called I Am Still Going Forward.
Thank you, Sarah. Hi, everybody. This is an excerpt from a story called You Are Still Going Forward. When I was 5 years old, I was supposed to help my grandma on small things around the house, like going to buy bread or milk or anything she needed for cooking. Sometimes my grandma would ask me to buy something for her, and I refused because I was more interested with playing with my friends. And if she really insist, then I'll start crying, and my grandmother will look at me and say, even if you're crying, you are still going forward. I didn't realize how important those words would become in my life. Going forward will always matter. My grandma was very patient with me, even when life was difficult for her. She always showed me her heart. At night, she would sing songs for me in another language and tell me stories so I would sleep. As a child, I did silly things to annoy her, like poking my finger at a fresh loaf of bread and leaving big hole on it. She told me never to play with food, that if you are lucky to have enough to eat, your obligation is to share or to give it away to those who are hungry. But I still poked holes in the bread. What I remember from my childhood is my grandma's smile, the delicious chicken, and the plantain dinner she made for us, and the abundance of our small compound. We had banana, apple, and avocado tree growing in the yard. It wasn't until 2017 that I understood what hunger truly feels like. My mother and two young brothers were hoping to migrate to the United States. Being hungry is not something you can imagine and to have experienced it. When your stomach is empty, you can't think. Your brain stops working. You don't feel anything like regular self. Over the next 5 months, my mother and brothers and I traveled by bus, taxi, truck, and boat. We walked miles and miles and miles, climbing up the mountain and wading across the river. We never had more than a little bit, just enough to keep us going. And sometimes, not at all. From Ecuador, we went to Colombia, and from Colombia, we traveled to Panama, where I was separate from my family. For 3 days, I hiked without my family and no food. Even though I didn't expect this part of the journey, I had to proceed. The only way was in the forest. There wasn't another option. It was like what my grandmother used to tell me, even if you're crying, you are still going forward. Thank you.
That was very powerful. Thank you, Leticia. Good evening, everyone. Assalamu alaikum. Masa al khair. My name is Aklas Ahmed. I am on the board of the Telling Room and really excited to have been one of the mentors for Yumna this year. Usually, when you're traveling, your brain thinks about the meals you're about to eat or arriving to your final destination. However, this February, as I boarded my flight from Khartoum, Sudan to Portland, Maine, home, my brain wouldn't stop thinking about my mentee, Yumna. Although I have met Yumna a couple of years ago, I was still really excited. I quickly rushed into thinking about the many ideas that we were going to talk about. Being a Sudanese American myself and growing up in the diaspora, I was a little bit familiar with what Yumna was about to share with me. Giving her advice, maybe talking to her about how to overcome obstacles, maybe telling her about opportunities that will help her grow, or maybe just being an audience to her wisdom. In our first session together, Yumna told me that she chose a big topic to write about. She chose a topic bigger than her, but she is the right person to choose this topic. Yumna told me about that she wanted to write about women's rights and talk about the sexual abuses that were happening in Sudan. I could not have been any prouder to hear those words coming from her. If you ever get an opportunity to be in the presence of Yumna, make sure you bring a pencil, a pen, or a notebook, because she is just full of intelligence and full of beautiful energy. Please help me introduce Yumna, a daughter to amazing refugee parents, a young Sudanese woman, and a senior at Portland High School. Take it away, Yumna.
Oh, thank you, Aklas. So I'm going to be reading an excerpt from my actual story that will be published in June. It's called It's Not Her Fault. People constantly hear about girls being sexually harassed, but they don't think it will ever happen to them. I thought that way too until it happened to me. Before that fateful night, I was at best oblivious and at worst a victim. But when it actually happened to me, I drew on reservoirs of strength deep in my girl's body that I never knew existed. Who knew I had superpowers? I am Yumna. I believe that no girl shall be raped, judged, or feel scared to go out alone because of the way she dresses. Although some men also experience sexual harassment, it's not as common as it is for women. Men must learn how to control their desires and stop chasing girls or judge them by how they look. Society should stop blaming girls regardless of what they are wearing. That's never an excuse for anyone to justify their mistake. If harassment was caused by women's dress, then why are women wearing the veil, niqab, also harassed? If harassment was caused by ignorance, then why would an educated teacher harass? If harassment was caused by a sexy body, then why do children get molested? It's about principles, ethics, self-control, and how someone was raised. We shouldn't prosecute the victims, but the harassers who choose to abuse innocent women and girls. During the early winter months of 2019, I saved money and purchased my ticket for my cousin's wedding. She asked me to meet her at a big restaurant near the wedding hall around 9:30 p.m. It was a busy and very dark street. I was dropped off in an orange logo of the restaurant. I was wearing a maxi royal blue dress that had no pockets. Very elegant, I must admit. I passed my phone to my sister to carry inside her little purse because I didn't think I'd need it. I tried to find a spot behind the field to wait without being stared at because of the fancy clothes I was wearing. After waiting for a few minutes, I noticed 3 guys, dark shapes walking toward me. They were cat-cowing and ordered me to come here. They said, "Hey, we need you. Come here, we want you." For 1 second, I thought bravely about telling them to leave me alone. I told myself that they weren't coming for me. While trying to console my thoughts, the men came closer. I felt numb and couldn't move. I was thinking, will they rob, kidnap, rape, or murder me? Or throw me in the river just like I used to hear in the news and read on the tabloids? I felt so hopeless as I said goodbye to the world, Mom and Dad, praying to God to help and save me. It was an incomprehensible moment. I didn't know how I would end up. My brain said, "Run!" I ran, praying and panicking. I couldn't feel my body. I wanted to run toward the hall, but they were coming from that direction. As they were chasing after me, I ran into a muddy field with my very skinny high heels. I ran as if I were a marathon champion. It just happened. Faster than all men in Sudan, I was unstoppable. I would have vaulted fences, torn through houses, and zigzagged at the speed of a bullet through traffic, so utterly determined to escape their vile hands. My body became supercharged with energy I didn't know I had. It became my best friend. Luckily, I saved myself from a sad fate, yet so many more could not. A couple of days later, I found out that place I was standing was a street for prostitutes. And even if I was at the wrong place at the wrong time, this is not permissible for them to do this to girls. If I had not ended up in the red light district, those women would have been invisible to me. I was able to see the women who experience that kind of harassment every day. No one deserves this. My experience in Sudan has opened up doors of deep reflections, and it made me feel what other girls might feel when being harassed. It totally changed my view toward women's rights. Women are not to be blamed for something that was against her will. Sadly, many cultures never look at the girl's psychological damage. All they think about is the shame and dishonor that she brought to their family. Men who decide to harass women are simply committing murder. Even though that victim is still physically alive, emotionally, you're stealing somebody's daughter's happiness, her purity, and her reputation. For women who are unable to overcome their experiences, you have stolen her dreams and her entire life. I am here to be the voice for every Sudanese girl and all the girls around the world who are oppressed or have their lives stolen from them unjustly. I will speak up for you. I am here for you because I am you. That's it.
Thank you, Yumna. That was really, really powerful. Yeah, my name is Jillian. It is both a joy and an honor to introduce our final young writer and leader reading today, my mentee Mimi, a junior at South Portland High School. I was pretty nervous when we first met. My creative writing muscles were out of practice, and I felt wildly inadequate next to the eloquent, distinguished writerly mentors scattered across my computer screen. I felt like I had stumbled into this beautiful web of thinkers while I was just a clueless college senior who faked my way in. But after our very first session together, I was buzzing. I'm sure Mimi could sense my nervousness, but Mimi had an ease and a warmth about her that put all that to rest. The way she spoke about hiking made me want to throw my essentials in a backpack and never live inside again. The way she saw meaning in small rocks made me see Maine's coastlines differently. The way she spoke about friendships spanning oceans of distance made me want to squeeze my loved ones close. We clearly discussed a range of life's moments, big and small. We started to begin sentences with, "I've never told anyone this before." The line between mentor and mentee blurred in a lovely sense, and I think Mimi's story today does an equally lovely job of blurring the defining boundaries between things like passion, duty, hardship, and love. I think Mimi's words can teach us all something about how coming of age is a process we are constantly undergoing at every stage of life. This is certainly something she taught me. So with that, I'll turn it over to the writer herself, Mimi.
Hi guys. I love you. I wish you were here, she said, but she was thousands of miles away. I wasn't close with my friends back in Iraq when I was in middle school. We became friends when I came to the United States. We got closer as the years went on. Some of them even became my best friends. I miss my friends so much. I want to see them. I've never hugged a true friend before. I want people to hear my voice. I want them to feel my words, but will they? Will they know how I'm feeling? I want my best friends here. I want to see them in front of me. I want to hug them. No one will fill up this space in me but them. Most of the time, I hate telling how I feel. Sometimes days, months, years pass without saying a word. It hurts keeping it inside you, but it feels right at the same time. In those darker moments, I think about camping. Camping is like therapy to me. I loved camping in the woods. Our trip leaders used to wake us up at 5 or 6 in the morning before the sun had fully risen. I had to wake up to the birds singing. It was tiring and sometimes difficult, but that's how we got moving. It was something about the smell of fire, the smell of rain, the smell of bug spray, and the smell of wet leaves that kept me tense for going over obstacles. Thank you.
Thank you, Mimi. Do you want to say anything about A New Land really quickly?
Sure. And so as Rebecca said, you can read the rest of Cynthia and the rest of the stories you heard excerpts of in the chapbook, which will be coming out in June. Stay tuned. It is yet unnamed. And I feel like I don't think I can go on without like just a giant, like emotive thank you so much. The Thursday always feels like the true finale. We've had a reading on Tuesday, and this screen is bringing up some emotions. So thank you so much, students. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So another thing we wanted to mention is we have a brand new poetry anthology out. You heard some amazing poems here today. We heard Lionel got lots of bars on that one. We've got amazing poets. I'm seeing Moon, Aklas as coaches. If you want to see an incredible anthology, you should check out A New Land, which is the Telling Room's latest anthology of poems as a celebration of our 15-year anniversary, with an incredible foreword by none other than Youth Poet Laureate Amanda Gorman. So please check that out. For sale at a bookstore.
Yes. Thank you all for spending your evening with us, to the coaches for showing up, and to the audience for being there. I know we can't see you, but we see you still, we know you're there. And to the students, we're so proud of you for being open and honest and putting your story out there, using your voice. It's incredible. And we hope that you continue to make platforms and find space to do that. And also the incredible words that all the coaches had to say about you are all so true, 100,000% true. You deserve to be praised. And these events are like the highlight of the beginning of the year. It's such a good way to start it off. So with that being said, thank you so much, and we will see you guys soon.
Thank you to the Portland Public Library for hosting this. Kelly Blue, teen librarian, Andy Mugisha, the mayor of the teen library, unofficial mayor, and all the teachers on the call, alums, Haneen Mohammed, I see you, alums of the program, and teachers and guidance counselors and administrators. We could not do this and make these connections without you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.